At some point in our lives, we have all asked ourselves this question: why this particular family? Why these parents? Why these conditions? Why this childhood with its sufferings, delights, losses, injustices, or conversely, its amazing warmth? Is it only biological, a coincidence, or does it have a deeper significance? Edgar Cayce, the man known in America as the Sleeping Prophet, claimed that nothing is accidental, especially not the choice of family. According to his unique trance readings, the soul prepares a script for its new life before birth, and in this script, the family is one of the crucial elements. This does not mean that we are in perfect conditions. On the contrary, very often we come into families where challenges await us, where we have to overcome pain, where difficulties, misunderstandings, or even betrayal await us. But Cayce explained that the soul does not choose comfort, but rather growth. In his numerous trance readings, he referred to the Book of Souls, in which, according to him, information about the previous incarnations of each person is kept. He saw that the soul chooses its parents based on karmic experiences, what it has been through, what needs to be healed, or what needs to be completed. For example, a man who betrayed his family in a previous life could, in a new life, be a child in a family where the father abandons them, to feel the pain he once caused, not as a punishment, but as a path to understanding. Or vice versa, a soul who helped others in a previous life could be born into a loving family as a gift for the lessons already learned. A young child who insisted on saying his mother wasn't real was the subject of one of Cayce's most well-known cases. He said that something went wrong because he was meant to be born into a different household. When the parents took the kid to Cayce, he confirmed that indeed the soul was meant to be born into a different family in accordance with the original plan. However, a last-minute adjustment brought about by a change in vibrations meant that this new family was not an error, but rather a new option. Cayce believed that the soul always receives exactly the environment that meets its inner needs at its current level of development. And most often, the family is an echo of our past lives. We return not to strangers, but to those with whom we were already connected. When we look back on our own childhood, with all its traumas, resentments, and unspoken words, we often ask ourselves, how could this be the soul's choice? How could that soul, something so high, pure, and spiritual, agree to be born in a family where it is not loved, betrayed, or even abused? Edgar Cayce did not give easy answers. He said, "The soul is not a victim, it is a student, sometimes a teacher, sometimes a believer, but always the one who makes the choice. Even the hardest life has a meaning, and even the most difficult parents are a mirror, not a punishment, but an answer to a deep question of the soul asked even before birth. What do I have to go through to get closer to the light?" Cayce explained that father and mother are not just physical carriers of DNA, but two souls with whom one already has karmic connections. And these knots must either be untangled or strengthened. In some cases, one is born to forgive, in others, to be supported, in others, to teach. He also noted that the soul voluntarily accepts the challenge before incarnation. It sees the entire spectrum of possible options, one family easier, another more difficult. But it chooses not the one that is comfortable, but the one that is deeper, because only in deep water does true strength grow. Interestingly, Cayce also pointed out that the soul is not just choosing the family, but is drawn into the vibrations that are closest to it. If a child is born into chaos, it means that something is still alive somewhere within that chaos. If it is born into love, it means that the soul is attracting the love it once gave. He also thought about the mother's role. He asserts that the mother serves as the soul's earthly guide, and that the soul's most important teachings are frequently revealed through the relationship with her. Since the soul learns trust, acceptance, and forgiveness through maternal love, or the lack of it, the lowest point of growth occurs when there is pain in the relationship with the mother. With the father, it is a little different. He represents structure, order, strength, and direction. If the mother is the channel through which the soul enters, then the father is the direction in which it will go. And this direction is not always easy, but always important. Cayce also said that the soul knows in which country it is born, in which culture, and on what soil. He said, "The soul does not fear pain, Only the body seeks comfort, and the personality seeks confirmation. The soul, however, seeks experience. It does not come to rest but to grow, and most often the strongest growth occurs exactly where it hurts. According to Cayce, souls very often choose to incarnate voluntarily into difficult families in order to break the karmic cycle. Imagine, your ancestors lived in fear, in trauma, transmitted pain and silence from generation to generation, and then you come, a soul that has already lived once and has enough strength to stop this chain. Cayce called such people carriers of the transformation. They often feel different from childhood. They do not fit into the usual patterns of the family. Their loved ones may not understand them, mock their sensitivity, or suppress them harshly. But it is precisely they who become the turning point in the history of the family. Through them, something new comes. In his readings, Cayce often said that souls are not only familiar with each other, but sometimes flow from role to role. Someone who was your father in a previous life could be your son in this life, and your child could have been your teacher in the past. This is why we have the feeling of knowing someone at first sight. These connections do not come from this life. They are as old as the soul itself. Such connections also explain difficult relatives. Very often, the soul chooses to be born into a family in which it meets another soul with whom it had a conflict. And this conflict must be resolved, not repeatedly, not justly, but healed. It is difficult, but this is how karma is completed. Imagine, you are born into a family with a harsh, cold father, but your soul has already experienced drama with him in a previous life. And now you have the chance to choose differently. Not to respond to aggression with aggression, not to flee, but to transform the relationship through understanding and compassion. Yes, it requires immense strength, but the soul knows that it has it. According to Cayce, some people enter challenging households in order to support their fellow family members. In other words, to support rather than to grow themselves. We call these service souls. They accomplish their work in silence and frequently at the expense of themselves, but their love alone transforms the environment and illuminates the space. In his trance readings, Edgar Cayce said repeatedly, "The soul does not come into the world by chance. It has a plan, and that plan is formed even before birth. But what kind of plan is it? Who creates it? And do we really agree to everything that happens to us later?" Cayce explained that before the soul can incarnate into a new life, it undergoes a kind of council meeting with higher spiritual beings, which he called guides. Together with them, the soul examines its previous incarnations, analyzes its mistakes, unfinished lessons, and unresolved wounds. And then a decision is made, which family to choose, which people it will cross paths with, and what challenges it must face. This script is not rigid and fatal. It is a framework, a direction. We are not puppets, we have free will. But the crucial moments are chosen in advance, and the family is one of those first points. Cayce called this the soul plan. It includes not only relationships, but also illnesses that may arise, talents that should be developed, places that need to be visited, and even crises that need to be experienced to awaken something. Some might ask, why should they choose suffering? Why should they come into a body that they know will be heavy? Cayce simply answered, the soul does not fear pain, it fears insignificance. Worse than suffering is an empty, unfulfilled life. When a soul does not fulfill what it has come for, it will always have to return. That's exactly why choosing a family is such a crucial step, because it is in the family that the strongest inner programs are most often formed. A soul could choose materialistic parents to learn spirituality, or a mother who does not understand it to learn unconditional love. A soul incarnated into a body with a disability or into a difficult family is not doing so as a punishment, but as a path to deep consciousness. He emphasized that it is better not to ask, why me? But to ask, well, what was I given this for? Because all the answers already lie in the soul. One of the most striking ideas in Cayce's readings is the concept of karmic knots within the family. According to him, souls often incarnate together with those with whom they had close connections in previous lives. But these are not always harmonious. On the contrary, very often, the soul returns to the same people to forgive what was never forgiven, to heal old wounds, to complete what was not said, or conversely, to learn to let go of someone it used to cling to. Cayce gave an example. A man who was a cruel father in a previous life could be born in the next life as the son of that same soul, but in the opposite role, to feel what he once inflicted on others. And vice versa, those who were lovers could become brothers and sisters to learn a new form of love, without sexuality, without possession. It may sound strange, even startling, but that's how Cayce discovered these links. A family encounter is never a coincidence. Even the challenging family members we don't understand or often argue with may be the most significant soul teachers. They give us strength, profound forgiveness, and self-respect instead of shattering us. Sometimes it is precisely those who hurt us the most that awaken something in us that we would never have discovered under other circumstances. According to Cayce, this is the higher purpose. He also believed that children choose their parents, and not the other way around. And often not because the parents are better, but because it is through them that the soul can have the experience it needs. For example, could a child with high spiritual awareness choose parents who are far from faith to teach them how to love more deeply? Or conversely, could a soul who has abused power in a previous life be born into a humble and oppressed family to learn the lesson of humility? Cayce said, "We are all teachers to each other, and every role in the family is a mirror in which the soul sees its true self." So when we ask, why this family? Why these parents? The answer is, because the soul knew that it would grow the most here, in this place. And this is not a punishment, but a key to understanding and acceptance, to awakening. If we accept the idea that the soul consciously chooses its family, not only our view of the past, but our entire life changes. Edgar Cayce emphasized that the true understanding of this truth leads people to a deep inner awakening. Because the victim mentality disappears, the question of why was I so unlucky disappears. Instead, a new question arises. What lesson should I learn? This does not mean that we should tolerate cruelty or endure abuse. Absolutely not. But it means looking for meaning behind the pain, not guilt, but wisdom. When a person begins to see their loved ones not just as mom, dad, brother, or child, but as souls with their own stories, something greater than just a connection arises: understanding, compassion, depth. Cayce taught, none of us meet by chance, not even for a brief moment, but those who are in our family are old acquaintances, sometimes old believers, and our relationships are bridges through eternity. And life changes the instant we come to terms with this. We start to view the child as an equal soul who has come to teach as well as learn, rather than as a project. We are able to forgive our parents because we realize that we may have asked them to be just how they are in order for us to overcome this obstacle. Because we view the soul's path as a series of experiences rather than a series of errors, we are able to forgive ourselves. Cayce said that a person can change his karma if he changes his consciousness, because the choice always remains. We are born into a certain family, but what we do with it, how we live, how we react, that is our present choice. And when we start living with this consciousness, life will never be the same again. We are no longer trapped in a script. We are co-authors. We are souls who have chosen each other to remind ourselves of what is most important. Love is the only force that survives all incarnations.